Rain crawled across the desert, slow, searching. It found the bones of a dying town and tapped the tin roof of a crooked saloon. Lantern light breathed against the glass. Men kept their voices low. Boots waited by the door like patient wolves. Mara Calder stood at the bar with a hand around a warm cup, coffee and whiskey. She watched the room the way a hawk watches a clearing. Still, quiet inside, ready if it broke. A piano slept in the corner. Cards lay abandoned in the middle of a table. Outside, thunder walked the road. The sign above the door creaked. The storm smelled of iron and wet dust. The door opened and Boone Rourke stepped in like a shadow that had learned to breathe. Hat low, coat heavy with rain. He did not bring the cold. He brought something older, the kind that makes a room decide which side it is on. Mara saw the cut on his cheek, fresh. She saw the scuff on his holster, recent. She looked at his hands and knew he had not slept. He lifted 2 fingers to the barman and got nothing. The barman was staring past Boone, toward the street, toward the other trouble coming, Coulter Vane. That name moved through the room without sound. His riders were out there. 6 shapes on the road. Matches struck in the rain. Sparks drowned quick. Men who believed in quick endings. Boone turned his head just enough to see Mara. The look carried a truth she did not expect. Tired. Careful. Kind under the grit. She felt it hit something old in her. A door she had nailed shut. He took 1 step toward her. That was when a bullet snapped the window and scattered glass across the floor. Lantern light shivered. Another shot bucked the door. The room woke like a horse under lightning. Boone moved, swift and quiet. He reached the bar. He pressed in close, shoulder to shoulder with Mara, the line of his body heat against her arm. He spoke low. "You armed?" "Yes." "Where?" "Left boot." He did not smile. He did not doubt. And he crouched. She felt the brush of his hand at her ankle, gentle, respectful. He came up with her small revolver and checked the cylinder. 6. He slid it back to her palm. His fingers were warm. She felt strength move from him into her skin, like fire spreading to dry wood. "Hold on my count," he said. Another shot tore a hole in the sign. The room swallowed a prayer. Men crouched behind tables. The barman ducked behind barrels. The rain pulled its hood low. Boone tipped his hat brim toward the window. He studied angles, light, shadows. He had the patience of a man who knew the price of rushing. Mara listened to her breath. Calm, even. A lesson from years of loneliness. The desert had taught her to be still when the sky tried to scare her. The desert had taught her to carry her heart quiet. Behind them, glass cracked again. A bottle died on the shelf. The smell of sour whiskey climbed into the air. Coulter called from the street. "Bring him out, and we will spare the place." The voice was clean, like a knife on stone. Boone did not answer. He looked at Mara. His eyes held a question. She understood it. Not fear, choice. He was asking if she would stand with him for a minute more. She nodded. The nod was small. It felt like it shook her life. 3, Boone whispered. The first rider fired. The bullet chewed a chair leg. Wood dust floated like pale snow. 2. Mara steadied her hand. Her breath fell in a soft rhythm. She felt the weight of the revolver settle into her. 1. Boone rose and fired through the broken pane. Clean shot. A rider yelped. Hooves startled. The street skidded into chaos. Mara leaned out beside him and picked a lantern reflection in the rain. She squeezed. A shape dropped hard into mud. Thunder rolled. A horse screamed. The others scattered for cover. The street pulled tight like a bowstring. Boone pulled her back. Close. He shielded her as another round tore across the bar. Splinters bit his coat. His hand found her shoulder and stayed there a second longer than needed. The touch steadied them both. She felt the tremor beneath his calm. A man running on the last of his strength. Between shots, the room went small and quiet. She could hear his breath. She could hear her own. 2 steady rivers trying to meet. But then she whispered, "You could leave me here and run for the back door." He shook his head once. "I am not leaving you." The words found a soft place in her chest and rested there. Old grief shifted. Old cold let go. She did not know why she believed him. She only knew she did. Lightning pinned the town to the earth. The moment split open. Memory walked in. Mara saw herself at 12, rain in her hair, hands shaking as her father rode away on a promise that never came true. She had taught herself not to look for anyone after that, not to wait at any door, not to need. Now a stranger stood with her while bullets carved the air. He shared his cover, his breath, his risk. The room felt different because he was in it. Boone slipped his revolver open. 2 left. He nodded at her. "We move right. Piano to the door. On my mark." She nodded. She felt the floor under her boots. She felt the steady core deep inside, the one no storm could touch. She lifted her chin. Rain hissed through the broken glass like a secret. Mark. They moved in a low glide. She pressed to the piano. He took the far leg. Another bullet hammered the wall where she had been. Keys cried out, then fell silent. Boone fired once. A rider tumbled. He held the last shot like a prayer he would not waste. Coulter called again. His voice was closer. "Choose, Rourke, or we burn it down." Mara looked at Boone. He was listening to something the rest could not hear. Footsteps, a scrape of spur, the hush before a bad idea. He raised 2 fingers. "Wait." The door burst inward. A tall man filled the frame with a rain slicker and a shotgun. Vane himself. Eyes like wet stone. Time slowed. The room went breathless. Boone could not fire without risking everyone behind the man. The shotgun mouth gaped like a cave. Mara moved. She did not think. She stepped from the piano and crossed the narrow gap with the quiet of a cat in snow. She put the small revolver against the slicker near the ribs where the fabric pulled thin. Close. Certain. "Drop it," she said. Her voice was calm, gentle, in a way that was not soft. Vane blinked. The shotgun dipped a fraction. Outside, the riders shifted. Horses blew steam. The storm leaned close to listen. Boone did not blink. He raised his empty hand. Easy, Coulter. Vane looked at Mara like he was noticing the sky for the first time. His jaw worked. He measured her steady eyes. He felt the cold mouth of her resolve. He dropped the shotgun into the mud just outside the door. It hit with a wet sigh. Boone stepped in and kicked it into the street. He did not lower his gaze. He did not touch Vane. He gave Mara the room to lead the next breath. Her hand stayed steady. Her pulse did not race. Inside, a door opened to warm light. It surprised her. It did not scare her. "You are going to call your men off," she said. "Then you are going to ride away." Vane searched her face for doubt. He found none. He set his teeth. He lifted his hand to signal. Rain stitched a bright line across the threshold. The riders watched. The town held its breath. And in that small breath between danger and choice, she felt Boone turn slightly toward her. Not to take over, to stand with her while she made the world move. If this story has warmed a quiet corner of your heart, stay close. The night still holds more to tell. Like, share, or leave your mark by the fire if you have felt that same quiet longing beneath the western sky. And if you are still listening, maybe your heart heard something familiar. Do not let it fade, because the next moment waits in the rain. The rain eased to a slow whisper, like the desert was catching its breath. Smoke from the gunfight drifted out the door, curling through the street where bodies and horses lay still. The saloon smelled of wet wood and burned powder. No one moved until Boone lowered his gun. Mara stood beside him, revolver still warm in her hand. Her pulse hadn't slowed. She could feel it against her throat, in her wrists, under her ribs, but her voice came out steady. "They're gone," she said. Boone nodded once. For now. He looked out through the doorway, rain glinting off his lashes. His cheek bled a thin red line from the shattered glass. She reached out before thinking and brushed it with her thumb. He didn't flinch. His eyes found hers, calm and dark as the thunder beyond town. "You shouldn't have stepped in front of him," he said. "And you shouldn't have stayed." Silence hung between them, thick as smoke. Then a ghost of a smile touched his mouth. "Maybe we both don't take advice well." She almost smiled back, almost. But the saloon was full of watching eyes, men who'd seen too much and wanted to forget it fast. Boone holstered his gun, tipped his hat toward the barkeep. "Keep what's left standing," he said. "We'll settle for damages later." The man only nodded. Everyone in that room knew Boone Rourke had just spared them a bloodbath. Outside, the air smelled clean after the storm. The street glistened, all mud and moonlight. Boone's horse waited tied to a post, a tall chestnut with a scar on its flank, and patience in its eyes. Mara followed him out. She didn't know why. Maybe because the saloon felt too small now. Maybe because something in her had shifted when he said he wasn't leaving. "You got a name?" she asked. "Boone. Just Boone. Boone's enough." He looked at her the way a man looks at a horizon, not sure yet if it's safe, but drawn to it anyway. "And you?" "Mara Calder." He nodded, like the name already belonged somewhere in his memory. "You shoot better than most men I've known, Mara Calder." She shrugged. "I had to learn. Out here, you either learn fast or you don't last long." The words slipped out sharper than she meant. He heard the edge but didn't press. He just leaned against the hitch rail, watching the last of the rain turn to silver dust. The wind carried the smell of sage and gun oil. A coyote called somewhere beyond the ridge. The night was wide open, and yet somehow it felt smaller with him standing this close. "Vane won't quit," Boone said quietly. "Men like him never do." Mara glanced toward the dark hills. "Then he'll find out this town's got teeth. That town's got one woman with a gun and too much pride." She tilted her head. "You saying that's not enough?" He met her eyes, long, steady, unflinching. "I'm saying it might not be fair for you to face what's coming alone." Something inside her softened. She didn't want it to. She'd spent years building walls high enough to block every kind of kindness. But his voice wasn't pity. It was promise. Quiet, steady promise. "What's your fight with him, Boone?" she asked. He looked away, jaw tightening. "Old debts. Wrong names carved into stones that didn't deserve it." "That sounds like a story." "It's not one I tell easy." "Good," she said. "I don't trust easy." He turned back then, and for the first time his smile reached his eyes. It wasn't charm, it was truth, worn and simple. "Guess we understand each other then." The rain started again, soft and light, almost tender. She watched the drops run down his collar, glinting like silver against the dark leather. The fire that had roared through the saloon was gone now, but something else had taken its place. Quieter, steadier, more dangerous. Boone untied his horse and offered a hand. "You got somewhere to be, Mara Calder." "Nowhere worth going." "Then ride with me. Safer to move before Vane regroups." She hesitated. Trust wasn't something she gave. But the town behind her was full of ghosts, and the road ahead glowed with a kind of wild promise she hadn't felt in years. She took his hand. His palm was rough, calloused from years of hard work and harder days. When he pulled her up into the saddle behind him, she caught the scent of rain and dust and faint whiskey, the scent of a man who belonged to nowhere but carried every place with him. They rode through the outskirts, where lanterns flickered low in windows. The horses' hooves splashed through puddles, slow and steady. Wind whispered through the cottonwoods. Boone didn't speak for a long time. When he finally did, his voice came soft, meant only for her ear. "You shoot clean, you stand tall, and you don't scare easy. That's a rare thing, Mara." "Careful," she murmured. "You sound like you're starting to like me." "Maybe I am." Her heartbeat stumbled. She tried to look away, but his warmth was right there, solid and close. The night wrapped around them like an old song. They passed the ridge, and the moon broke free of the clouds. The world below turned silver. Mara tightened her grip around his waist to steady herself as the horse took a small rise. He felt her touch and didn't move away. 1,000 words could have filled that silence, but none were needed. The wind spoke enough. It carried the scent of rain, gunpowder, and the beginning of something neither of them dared name yet. Up ahead, the land opened wide, hills rolling toward dawn. Somewhere beyond, Vane was already gathering what was left of his men. Somewhere closer, Boone and Mara rode side by side into a story neither of them had planned to find. And under the quiet hum of hooves and stormlight, the outlaw turned his head just slightly, voice rough and honest. "Whatever happens next, Mara Calder, you ride with me until it's done." She looked up at him, rain catching in her lashes. "Then you better make sure we both live long enough to finish it." He smiled, slow, tired, unguarded. That's the plan. The road curved toward the mountains, where the clouds still held their lightning close. Between heartbeats and thunder, something began that neither of them would ever forget. If this story has found its way under your skin, stay close. The storm hasn't passed yet, and the next part will ride straight into its heart. They rode until the sky bruised pale grey. Dawn crawled up from the desert, slow and aching, spilling cold light over the land. The storm had spent itself, but the wind still carried the smell of rain and gunpowder. Mara's hands were stiff from holding the reins. Boone had been silent for miles, eyes on the ridgeline, the muscles in his jaw set hard. He moved like a man who trusted nothing but the next breath. When the trail bent toward a ravine, he pulled up his horse. "We'll rest here," he said. Mara slid down first, boots sinking into the damp earth. The world was quiet except for the drip of rain from the rocks. The air felt raw, washed clean. Boone untied a small pack, knelt by a patch of dry ground, and started a fire with steady hands. His fingers moved with a kind of quiet grace, like someone who had done this too many nights under too many skies. She watched him. "You always this calm after a gunfight?" He looked up. "Only when I'm still alive." She gave a low laugh. "You make that sound like luck." "It's never luck." He didn't explain, and she didn't ask. The fire caught, crackling low and warm. She crouched beside it, rubbing her palms near the flame. Her reflection flickered in his eyes, a ghost of a woman who'd forgotten what warmth felt like. For a while they ate in silence, jerky, a few hard biscuits, water that tasted like the river miles away. Boone's coat steamed in the firelight. He kept his gaze on the horizon, scanning like a man who'd learned the cost of not looking far enough ahead. Finally, Mara spoke. "You said Coulter Vane carved the wrong names into stones. What did you mean?" Boone didn't answer right away. The fire popped, spitting sparks into the damp air. When he finally spoke, his voice came low. 3 years ago, I rode with him. Thought we were cleaning up the frontier, hunting bandits, chasing justice. Turned out we were just the same as the ones we hunted." She stayed quiet. The wind sighed across the ravine. "He burned a settlement near the border," Boone went on. "Said it was sheltering outlaws. It wasn't. There were families, kids. He blamed it on the men who couldn't speak for themselves." Mara's throat tightened. "And you?" "I walked away." "Walked away?" He met her eyes, steady, unblinking. "Didn't feel like much of a choice. You stay with a man like that, you lose whatever's left of your soul." Mara studied him through the smoke. "And now, he wants you dead." Boone nodded. "He can't stand ghosts that talk back." The wind shifted, sending sparks across the fire. Boone rose, walked to his horse, and checked the rifle in its scabbard. The tension in him was a quiet hum, the kind that never really rested. Mara stood too. "So, what's your plan?" "Get ahead of him before he circles south. There's a canyon near Red Mesa. Narrow pass. He'll try to trap us there." She crossed her arms. "Then you're riding straight into it?" His eyes lifted to hers. "You've got a better idea?" "I've got one that doesn't end with both of us dead." Boone gave a dry half-smile. Most of my ideas end that way. Mara shook her head. You're impossible. Maybe, but you're still riding with me. She wanted to argue. Instead, she kicked dirt over the fire and reached for her coat. Let's move before he smells the smoke. Boone mounted up, hand brushing the brim of his hat. You've got a good head for this. Don't flatter me. I'm just tired of running. He glanced at her. Then stop running. His tone wasn't sharp. It was simple, steady, like he was offering a truth, not an order. But it hit deep. She swallowed hard, unable to answer. The world around them stretched wide, endless, and for a second, the idea of stopping, of not being hunted or haunted, felt almost real. They rode through the ravine, the horses' hooves sinking into red clay. The wind brushed over their faces, cold and clean. Sunlight slipped through the clouds in thin gold threads. As the land opened again, Mara looked toward the far hills. There's a cabin, she said, pointing. Old mining post. We can make shelter before night. Boone followed her gaze. You know it? My father used to trade there before the fever took him. He nodded once. Then lead the way. They rode side by side. Boone's silhouette against the sun looked carved from the same stone as the desert. Strong, worn, beautiful, in the way only broken things could be. By the time they reached the cabin, the sun was melting into the rim of the world. The walls leaned with age, but the roof still held. Boone dismounted, scanning the tree line before stepping inside. He struck a match. Firelight bloomed across the room, soft and amber. Mara followed, brushing her hair back from her face. Her dress was torn at the sleeve, a streak of dirt across her cheek. She looked like a woman who'd fought the world and kept standing. Boone found an old blanket in the corner and tossed it near the fire. You take that, he said. What about you? He shrugged. Had colder nights. She hesitated, then threw half the blanket back at him. We'll share. For a moment, neither moved. The space between them was thin as breath. The only sound was the whisper of wind through the boards. Boone's eyes caught the firelight, warm and unreadable. Mara felt something shift again, the kind of quiet gravity that pulls two people closer, even when the world outside is full of bullets and ghosts. Boone sat down beside her, the fire painting gold across his face. The storm had left him raw, edges softened by exhaustion. He looked at her the way a man looks at something he doesn't quite believe is real. You could have walked away back there, he said. Why didn't you? She turned toward the fire. Maybe I'm tired of watching people die while I do nothing. Boone's voice dropped low. You did more than nothing, Mara. You stood your ground. She looked at him then, really looked. The distance between them was gone. His shoulder brushed hers, a quiet, steady warmth in a cold world. She could feel the danger outside waiting for morning, but in that moment, under that flickering light, the only thing that mattered was the heartbeat close enough to count. Boone met her gaze, voice a whisper. Rest while you can. Tomorrow won't be gentle. She nodded, though sleep felt far away. The fire burned low, and the night grew still. Somewhere outside, the desert held its breath. And between two souls too worn to trust, something fragile began to bloom. Not promise, not peace, but the first tremor of both. If this story has stirred a memory in you, stay close. The fire's not out yet, and the night still has truths to tell beneath its quiet stars. The dawn came slow, spreading thin gold across the cracks in the cabin walls. Boone was already awake, seated by the window with his rifle balanced across his knees. His eyes never stopped moving, scanning the ridge, the line of the trail, the shifting light that might hide danger. Mara stirred beneath the shared blanket. For a moment she didn't remember where she was. Then the smell of dust, smoke, and coffee brought it all back. The fight, the road, the man sitting in the half-light. He looked carved from silence itself, every inch of him steady, watching, waiting, belonging to the stillness the way the desert belongs to the wind. "You don't sleep much, do you?" she murmured. Boone glanced over, a small smile tugging at his mouth. Sleep makes a man slow, or human. I lost that somewhere back in Kansas. She sat up, pulling the blanket around her shoulders. "I doubt that. You bleed like one." He almost laughed, the sound quiet and rough. "You notice everything, don't you?" "Only the things that can kill me," she said, then softer, "and the things that might save me." The air between them shifted, small, fragile. Boone looked away first, rising to pour coffee into a battered tin cup. He handed it to her. His fingers brushed hers, calloused warmth meeting her cold skin. "Drink," he said. "We've got a long day." She took a sip. Bitter, strong, grounding. "What's the plan?" "We head east before sun's high. Vane won't quit. He'll want revenge, not reason." "You think he'll track us this far?" Boone nodded. "He's got a hunter's nose and a coward's pride. Dangerous mix." Mara stood, brushing the dust from her dress. "Then we ride before he catches the scent." Boone didn't move. His gaze lingered on her, the set of her jaw, the quiet determination in her eyes. "You're not afraid," he said. "You should be." "I was," she answered, tying her hair back with a strip of leather. "Once." "Fear doesn't help you aim." Something like respect flickered across his face. He slung his rifle over his shoulder and stepped into the morning light. The desert stretched wide and endless before them, pink and silver under the rising sun. They rode hard through the morning. The land changed, low scrub giving way to canyon teeth and shadowed stone. The wind picked up, carrying whispers through the cliffs. By midday, they reached a narrow gorge where red rock walls rose like the edges of a wound. Boone pulled up his horse and studied the ground. "Tracks," he muttered. 3 riders, maybe 4, half a day ahead. "Vane?" Could be worse." She leaned forward in her saddle, scanning the ridges. "We should find higher ground." He nodded. "There's a bluff a mile north. We can see the whole pass from there." The climb was rough, loose rock and dry brush tearing at their boots. The sun burned down, turning sweat to dust. When they finally reached the top, the world opened beneath them, a jagged stretch of canyon, sharp and alive. Boone crouched near the edge, peering through his spyglass. Below, distant figures moved along the trail, small as insects, slow as fate. "It's them," he said. "Vane's got 5 now. He's not giving up." Mara knelt beside him. The sight of them lit something fierce in her chest. Anger, maybe, or the raw ache of unfinished fear. "He wants you," she said, "but he'll kill anyone standing close." I know. She looked at him, eyes sharp. Then why not end this here? You've got a clean shot. Boone's jaw tightened. Too far, and I don't shoot a man in the back unless he's earned it. Hasn't he? Boone's silence was answer enough. They stayed there until the riders vanished into the dust. The sun dropped lower, bleeding red across the sky. Boone turned toward her, his face softer in the light. "You've got fire in you, Mara Calder," he said. "It's going to get you hurt one day." "Maybe," she said quietly, "but not today." For a moment, neither looked away. The wind tangled her hair. Boone reached out, almost without meaning to, and brushed a strand from her face. His hand lingered, rough against her skin, gentle in a way that broke her open from the inside. She didn't move, didn't breathe. His thumb traced the curve of her jaw, and something deep inside her, buried under years of silence, began to thaw. Then the sound of distant thunder cracked the spell. Boone's hand fell away. "Storm's coming," he said, voice lower now. "We need cover." They found an overhang near the bluff, a shallow cave carved by wind and time. Boone led the horses inside and unpacked his saddlebag. The first drops of rain hit the stone, cold and sharp. Mara sat near the wall, watching him work. The steady rhythm of his hands, the calm even as lightning painted the sky. "You ever get tired of running?" she asked. Boone didn't look up. "Every day." "So why do you keep going?" He paused, glancing at her. "Because stopping's worse." She nodded slowly. "I used to think the same." He studied her then, the way her eyes caught the firelight, the weariness under her strength. "Used to? Now I think maybe it depends who you stop for." Boone's breath caught, quiet and sharp. The rain deepened, filling the space with a low, steady hum. Between heartbeats, something passed between them, fragile, wordless, inevitable. He moved closer, just enough that the warmth of him met the chill in her. The scent of rain and smoke hung between them. She looked up at him, eyes dark, unguarded. "Boone," she whispered. He didn't answer. He just reached out, slow, careful, his hand finding hers in the half-light. No rush, no claim, just touch, steady and real. Outside, the storm broke open. Inside, the quiet held. And in that breath, while thunder walked the hills, Mara Calder stopped running, not from danger, but from herself. If this story has stirred something quiet and wild in your heart, stay close. The night isn't done, and the next storm carries more than rain. The storm rolled all night. The wind howled through the canyon, rattling loose stones and whispering secrets in the dark. Boone and Mara stayed close to the fire, its glow the only warmth against the cold breath of the desert. She watched the flames dance, eyes heavy but awake. Boone sat a few feet away, coat draped over his shoulders, hat low over his eyes. He looked like part of the rock, still, quiet, belonging. "You ever stop moving long enough to see what's chasing you?" she asked softly. Boone lifted his head. "You asking for me or yourself?" "Both." He stared into the fire, the light flickering across his scarred cheek. "What chases me doesn't care if I stop. It waits." "Always has." She studied him. The hard lines softened by shadow, the weary calm of a man who'd made peace with running but never with himself. Then maybe it's time you let it catch you. He looked at her now, the fire reflected in his eyes. And what would you know about that, Mara Calder? Enough, she said. I spent half my life running from a promise I made the day my father died. Told myself I'd never trust another man with a gun or a smile. Both get you killed. Boone's jaw flexed, something raw moving behind his calm. And yet you're here. Yeah, she whispered. And that scares me worse than any bullet. Rain drummed on the rock roof above them, steady and deep. Boone shifted closer, his movements slow, deliberate. He reached into his coat and pulled out a silver locket, tarnished and worn. She used to wear this, he said quietly. The woman Vane's fire took. I keep it to remember the sound of her laugh, and to remind myself what silence costs. Mara's eyes softened. You loved her. He nodded once, and failed her. No, she said. Vane did that. You're just the one who keeps paying the debt. Boone looked at her, really looked. The wind shifted. For a moment, the fire between them felt like the only thing alive in the world. He reached out and turned the locket in his hand, letting her see the faint engraving on the back. Always come home. Mara brushed her thumb over the words. You ever think you will? Boone's voice came rough. Don't know if I got a home left. You could, she said softly, if you stopped running long enough to build one. Their eyes held. The space between them hummed with something deeper than fear, something that had waited through too many lonely nights to be named. Thunder cracked. The fire flared, throwing light across their faces. Boone leaned forward, slow as a man stepping into a dream he didn't trust. Mara didn't pull back. The distance between them broke like a breath. His lips brushed hers, light, unsure, almost reverent, the kind of kiss that asked more than it took. Her hand rose to his jaw, rough with stubble and rain, and she felt him exhale like the world had been holding him too long. He drew back a fraction, searching her eyes. You sure? He whispered. Mara's voice trembled. For once in my life, yeah. The second kiss wasn't hesitant. It was hungry, the kind born of too much silence, too many nights thinking about what could never be. The storm outside broke in full, thunder shaking the stone, rain pouring like confession. Boone's hand found the back of her neck, his thumb tracing her pulse. Her breath came in soft shivers against his mouth. Every heartbeat said what words couldn't, the ache of two souls that had fought the world and finally found something worth losing for. But even in that heat, the tenderness held. His touch was careful, protective, reverent, the kind of gentleness that healed more than it took. When they finally pulled apart, the fire had burned low. Boone rested his forehead against hers, eyes closed. You make me forget what I'm running from, he murmured. Then maybe stop, she whispered back. Just for tonight. They sat in the silence that follows truth, breathing the same air, sharing the same warmth. Outside, lightning tore through the clouds, painting the canyon in silver light. Boone looked toward the storm, his voice low. Come morning, Vane will be close. He'll ride harder after this rain. Mara met his gaze. Then we'll be ready. He smiled faintly. You keep saying we like it's been true all along. It has, she said. You just didn't want to believe it. Boone reached for his hat and set it on her head, brim low over her eyes. Careful, Mara Calder. You wear that, the world might mistake you for an outlaw." She smiled. Small, tired, beautiful. "Maybe it's time I was." He looked at her a long while, then said softly, "If you ride with me tomorrow, there's no going back." I wasn't planning to. The rain began to fade, leaving only the sound of water dripping from the rocks. The air smelled of smoke, leather, and something new, fragile but alive. Boone lay back against the wall, hat tilted down, hand resting near hers. The storm had passed, but the danger hadn't. Outside, the desert waited, patient as death, and as Mara drifted into uneasy sleep, her hand brushed his, a quiet promise beneath the ashes of the fire. If this story has warmed something soft and restless inside you, stay close. Dawn is coming, and with it, the gunsmoke they can't outrun. Dawn came sharp and cold. The rain had stopped, but the world still smelled of smoke and wet earth. The sky stretched wide and pale, streaked with the last shreds of storm. Boone was already awake, rolling his bedroll with quiet precision. His movements were steady, the kind of calm that meant trouble was close. Mara stirred by the dying fire. Her hair was loose, tangled from sleep. She blinked against the thin light and found him watching the horizon like he was reading something written only for him. "You see them?" she asked, voice low. "Not yet," he said, "but I feel it. Men like Vane don't sleep long when they've lost a fight." She pulled her coat tighter, standing. "Then we should move." Boone nodded, fastening his holster. "We'll head east through the dry wash, harder to track after rain." She saddled her horse, hands practiced and sure, though inside her chest the rhythm of her heartbeat felt strange. Faster, louder. Boone's touch from the night before still lingered in her skin, a ghost she couldn't shake. He mounted up, offered her a hand, but she swung into the saddle without help. He gave a quiet grin,